You've been told your whole life that success belongs to the people who are consistent. That if you just show up every day, if you just keep grinding, if you just keep putting in the hours, eventually life will reward you. And at first glance, that sounds powerful. It sounds disciplined. It sounds like something responsible adults would say. But there is a hidden poison inside that advice that nobody warns you about. Because showing up without intensity is not discipline, it is self-deception dressed up as productivity. Most people don't understand this, so they spend years trapped in motion but not in progress. They wake up, they do the same routine, they tick the same boxes, they follow the same habits, and then at the end of the day they feel proud. They say to themselves, I showed up today. But what they don't realize is that showing up is the lowest possible standard of participation in life. Even someone who hates their life shows up. Even someone who is failing shows up. Even someone who has already accepted mediocrity still wakes up in the morning and repeats their cycle. So if your entire identity is built on just showing up, you are not building success, you are building comfort inside failure. The dangerous part is that it feels like progress. That's what makes it so addictive. Because when you show up, your brain releases a sense of satisfaction. You feel like you did something meaningful. You feel like you are on the right path. But feelings are not facts. And that feeling of productivity can easily become a prison where you never question whether your effort actually has power or direction. Real success never comes from empty repetition. It comes from directed intensity. It comes from people who don't just appear, but arrive with force. People who don't just participate, but dominate the space they are in. The problem with most individuals is that they confuse movement with impact. They think because they are busy, they are building something. But business without aggression is just disguised stagnation. Look closely at your own life. When you say you are working hard, what does that actually mean? Are you pushing your limits? Or are you just extending your comfort zone slightly and calling it discipline? Because there is a massive difference between doing something daily and doing something with a level of force that actually changes outcomes. Two people can show up in the same gym. One goes through the motions, lifts casually, checks the mirror, scrolls his phone between sets, and leaves feeling satisfied that he worked out. The other enters with focus, with aggression, with intent to break his body's limits, to force adaptation, to demand growth. Both showed up, but only one of them is changing. That is the truth most people refuse to accept, and this pattern repeats in every area of life. In business, in education, in relationships, in skill building. People think presence is enough. They think time automatically converts into results. But time without pressure produces nothing. Time without intensity just stretches your mediocrity across a longer timeline. This is why so many people are stuck. Not because they are lazy in the traditional sense, but because they are comfortable in their routine. They have built a life where they can say, I did something today, without ever having to face the reality that what they did had no real impact. It is a dangerous psychological trap because it protects the ego. It allows you to feel successful without actually being successful, and the ego loves that. The ego doesn't want truth. The ego wants comfort. So it will happily accept a low standard of effort as long as it allows you to feel consistent. That's why people defend their routines so strongly. That's why they get offended when someone challenges their effort. Because deep down, they know they are not pushing as hard as they could, but they don't want to face that discomfort. Intensity is uncomfortable. Real intensity requires you to confront your limits every single day. It requires you to fail, to struggle, to feel like you are not enough, and then to push anyway. That is why most people avoid it. So instead, they replace it with consistency, because consistency feels safe. It feels stable. It feels like progress without pain. But here is the truth that separates winners from everyone else. Consistency without intensity is just repetition of the same level. It does not elevate you. It does not transform you. It does not create breakthroughs. It only reinforces your current state. If your current state is average, then consistent average effort will only give you a long life of average outcomes. And that is what most people don't want to admit. They want to believe that time alone will elevate them. That one day, after enough years of showing up, something magical will shift. But life doesn't work like that. Life responds to force. Life responds to pressure. Life responds to people who demand more from themselves than the environment expects from them. Think about it. Everything valuable in this world was created by intensity, not casual repetition. Buildings were not built by people who just showed up and did the minimum. Athletes don't break records by simply attending practice. Businesses don't dominate markets because their founders were moderately consistent. Everything that stands out, everything that wins, everything that lasts is built by people who go beyond the baseline. The baseline is showing up. That is the starting point, not the achievement, yet most people treat it like the destination. They wake up, do the minimum, and then mentally reward themselves as if they have accomplished something significant. That internal reward system is what keeps them stuck. Because once your brain is satisfied with low effort, it stops pushing for more. And when you stop pushing for more, your life stops expanding. This is why you can work for years and feel like nothing changes. Because nothing changes at the level that matters. You are repeating effort, not increasing force. You are maintaining routine, not building momentum. And momentum is what separates transformation from stagnation. Real momentum doesn't come from just showing up again and again. It comes from showing up differently each time. More focused, more intentional, more demanding. That is how growth compounds. Not through repetition, but through escalation. But escalation requires discomfort. And discomfort is where most people quit internally, even if they physically stay present. They stop pushing mentally long before they stop physically showing up. That is why they remain stuck, because their body is there, but their intensity is missing, so they live in this illusion of effort. They believe they are trying. They believe they are disciplined. But deep down, they are avoiding the one thing that would actually change their life: full commitment to intensity without emotional protection. They want results without pressure. Success without strain, transformation without sacrifice. And that combination does not exist anywhere in reality, so they settle for the next best thing, which is routine without power. You need to understand something that most people refuse to accept because it destroys their excuses, it destroys their comfort, and it forces them to take full responsibility for their life. And that truth is simple but brutal. Your results are not random. Your results are not mysterious. Your results are not controlled by luck or timing or external forces, as much as you like to believe they are. Your results are a direct reflection of your effort, and not just effort in the sense of showing up, not just effort in the sense of being present, but the actual quality, intensity, and depth of the effort you put into what you do every single day. Because average input will always, without exception, produce average output. And there is no escaping that rule, no matter how badly you want to believe you are the exception. Most people live their entire life confused about why nothing changes for them, why they stay in the same position, why their income doesn't grow, why their body doesn't transform, why their skills don't improve, why opportunities never seem to appear for them the way they appear for others. And they keep searching for complex answers. They blame the economy, they blame their circumstances, they blame their environment, they blame the people around them, but they almost never look at the one thing they control completely, which is the level of effort they bring into everything they do. Because the uncomfortable truth is that most people are operating at a level of effort that is designed to maintain their life, not change it. They are doing just enough to survive, just enough to feel productive, just enough to avoid guilt, but never enough to break through their current reality. Think about your daily actions. Think about how many things you do on autopilot, how many things you rush through just to finish them, how many things you do without thought, without precision, without intention, and then ask yourself honestly, do those actions look like the actions of someone who is trying to change their entire life? Or do they look like the actions of someone who is trying to get through the day as easily as possible? Because there is a massive difference between those two mindsets, and that difference is what separates people who stay stuck from people who rise. Average effort is invisible in the beginning. It doesn't look like failure. It doesn't feel like failure. It actually feels normal. It feels safe. It feels manageable. And that's why it's so dangerous, because it slowly becomes your identity without you even noticing. You start accepting lower standards in one area, then another, until your entire life is built on a foundation of minimum effort disguised as consistency. And you convince yourself that consistency alone is enough. But consistency without intensity is just repetition, and repetition of weak effort only makes weak results more permanent. Look at the people around you, really look, not just at what they say, but at what they produce, and you will notice a pattern. The people who are struggling are not necessarily doing nothing, they are doing things, they are active, they are busy, they are constantly moving, but their effort lacks depth, it lacks focus, it lacks aggression, it lacks the willingness to go beyond what is comfortable, and because of that, their results stay flat. They stay trapped in the same cycle of effort and disappointment, until they eventually convince themselves that this is just how life is supposed to be. But then you see another group of people, and they are not necessarily working more hours, they are not necessarily more talented, they are not necessarily more lucky, but there is something different about them. Their effort is sharper, their attention is tighter, their execution is cleaner, they don't waste motion, they don't waste energy, they don't operate at half capacity, they move with intention, they think before they act, they push through resistance instead of avoiding it, and because of that, their results are completely different, not slightly different, not marginally better, but fundamentally different, and that difference is not external, it is internal. It is the quality of effort they bring into the same 24 hours everyone else has. You have to stop lying to yourself about what you are actually doing in your day, because most people confuse activity with productivity. They confuse movement with progress. They confuse being tired with being effective. But exhaustion does not equal achievement, and business does not equal success. And if you are honest with yourself, you will realize that a large portion of your energy is wasted on low-value actions, distracted thinking, emotional reactions, and inconsistent focus. And then you wonder why your life is not changing, but the answer has been in front of you the entire time. If you give average focus to your work, you will get average results. If you give average discipline to your habits, you will get average transformation. If you give average energy to your goals, you will get average outcomes. And there is no negotiation with this rule, because life responds to what you consistently demonstrate, not what you occasionally intend, not what you hope for, not what you promise yourself in moments of motivation, but what you repeatedly execute when no one is watching and when no external pressure is forcing you to perform at your best. And this is where most people fail, not in the big moments, but in the small daily decisions where they choose comfort over effort, where they choose easy over effective, where they choose distraction over discipline. Because every time you choose the easier option, you reinforce the identity of someone who operates at average level. And that identity compounds over time. It becomes stronger. It becomes more automatic. It becomes harder to break until eventually it feels like that is just who you are. But in reality, it was built through repeated decisions to stay comfortable. Instead of pushing harder, you cannot expect extraordinary results from ordinary effort. And yet this is exactly what most people do. They dream big, they talk big, they imagine a different life. But their daily output does not match the life they want. And that mismatch is the reason they stay stuck. Because transformation requires alignment between desire and effort, between vision and execution, between goals and behavior. And when that alignment is missing, nothing changes no matter how long you wait. The truth is your current life is not the result of one big decision. It is the accumulation of thousands of small effort decisions, each one either moving you forward or keeping you exactly where you are. And if you trace it back honestly, you will see that average effort has been the silent force shaping your reality, not because you are incapable of more, but because you have accepted less for too long. And the moment you accept that average effort creates average results every single time, without exception, without loopholes, without excuses, you also gain the power to change it, because now the solution becomes clear. You don't need more time. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need external validation. You need a higher standard of effort applied consistently in the things that actually matter, not occasionally, not when you feel motivated, but as a non-negotiable way of operating every single day, in every task you commit to, regardless of how you feel in the moment. There is a level above what most people call discipline. There is a level above consistency. There is a level above just showing up and trying your best. And most people will never understand it because they never push past the comfort zone where average effort feels acceptable. But the truth is simple and uncomfortable at the same time. Winners are not defined by their presence. They are defined by their dominance, by the way they enter a task with full control, full focus, full intensity, and a mindset that refuses to accept anything less than complete execution. You have to understand that showing up is something everyone does. Even people who are failing in life show up. Even people who are broke show up. Even people who are out of shape, unfocused, distracted, and lost show up. So if you think showing up is the standard that separates you from everyone else, then you are already operating at the lowest possible level of thinking, because winners are not competing on attendance. They are competing on impact, on output, on precision, on execution that leaves no room for mediocrity. When a winner enters their work, they are not thinking about just getting through it. They are not thinking about finishing it so they can feel productive. They are not thinking about doing the minimum required. They are thinking about how to take full control of the task, how to push it beyond normal standards, how to extract maximum value from every single minute, every single decision, every single action. And that mindset changes everything about the outcome before the outcome even exists. Most people operate like passengers in their own life. They sit inside their routine and let the day happen to them. They react to distractions. They respond to notifications. They shift their focus depending on how they feel in the moment. And then they wonder why their results are unstable, why their progress is inconsistent, why their life feels like it is moving but not improving. But winners operate differently. They are not passengers, they are drivers. They decide the direction of their attention. They decide the quality of their effort. They decide what gets their energy and what gets ignored. And that level of control is what creates dominance. Dominance is not about working harder in the emotional sense. It is about working with precision. It is about eliminating waste. It is about removing anything that does not serve the objective. And most people don't even realize how much of their effort is wasted on things that don't matter. How much of their time is spent switching between tasks without depth. How much of their energy is lost in distraction, hesitation, and low-value activity. But a winner becomes obsessed with removing that waste because they understand that wasted effort is the enemy of success. And here is something most people never hear clearly. Winners don't wait for motivation. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They don't wait for the right mood. They don't wait for external pressure to push them. They generate their own intensity regardless of how they feel, because they understand that feelings are temporary, but standards are permanent. And if your performance depends on how you feel, then your success will always be unstable, unpredictable, and fragile. A winner wakes up and immediately enters a state of responsibility, not emotion, not comfort, not hesitation, responsibility. And that responsibility forces them to act at a higher level than what feels easy. Because easy is not the goal, comfort is not the goal, survival is not the goal. The goal is control, mastery, and execution at a level that creates undeniable results. You can see the difference when you observe people closely. There are those who go through their day trying to complete tasks, and there are those who go through their day trying to conquer tasks. And that difference might sound small in words, but in reality, it is massive in outcome. Because the person who is trying to complete something will stop when it is done, but the person who is trying to dominate something will stop only when there is nothing left to improve, nothing left to refine, nothing left to extract. This is why winners move differently in every area of life. Whether it is fitness, business, skill development, or personal growth, they are not satisfied with participation. They are not satisfied with basic progress. They are not satisfied with doing what everyone else is doing, because they understand that if you operate at the same level as everyone else, you will get the same results as everyone else. And average results are not acceptable to someone who is committed to dominance, and dominance requires a certain level of mental aggression, not aggression towards people, but aggression towards laziness, towards distraction, towards excuses, towards anything that pulls you away from your potential. Because every time you allow yourself to relax when you should be pushing, every time you allow yourself to stop when you could go further, every time you accept good enough, instead of maximum effort, you lower your standard without even realizing it. And once your standard drops, your results follow. Winners protect their standards like their life depends on it, because in a way, it does. Their future depends on it. Their identity depends on it. Their success depends on it. And they understand that one compromised day leads to another. One weak decision leads to another. And over time, those small compromises turn into a lifestyle of mediocrity that feels normal, but is far from powerful. When you watch someone who is truly operating at a high level, you will notice something interesting. They are not rushing. They are not chaotic. They are not scattered, but they are extremely intentional. Every action has direction. Every movement has purpose. Every decision is aligned with a larger goal. And that alignment creates a level of efficiency that looks almost effortless from the outside. But internally, it is built on extreme discipline and refusal to accept anything below their standard. This is the part most people misunderstand. They think winners are always pushing harder physically, but in reality, winners are often eliminating unnecessary effort. They are refining, simplifying, focusing, removing distractions. And that creates more output with less wasted energy, while average people are constantly doing more, but achieving less because their effort is not directed. It is scattered, and the deeper truth is that dominance is not a talent. It is a decision repeated every single day. It is the decision to not accept mediocrity, the decision to not relax into comfort, the decision to not let your mind drift into excuses, the decision to stay locked in even when no one is watching, even when no one is rewarding you, even when it feels like nothing is changing yet, because winners understand something very important. Progress is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. And the people who quit early never reach the stage where their effort compounds into results that others can see. So they keep going when others slow down, they push when others pause, they execute when others hesitate, and that consistent pressure on themselves builds a level of momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. And once that momentum starts building, everything shifts internally. The way they think becomes sharper, the way they act becomes faster, the way they respond to challenges becomes more controlled, and their standards rise automatically without needing external motivation, because they have trained themselves to operate at a higher level of expectation every single day without exception. So now step back and look at everything you just heard, because it all comes down to one uncomfortable truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You are not losing because you are not showing up. You are losing because of how you are showing up, because of the quality of your effort, because of the standard you accept from yourself when no one is watching, and because of the belief that simply being present is enough to create a different life. You were told that consistency is the key, but nobody explained that consistency without intensity only builds repetition, not transformation. You were told that showing up every day is the answer, but nobody told you that even people who are stuck, even people who are failing, even people who are giving up still show up. So if your only standard is presence, you are competing at the lowest possible level. And that is why nothing in your life feels like it is changing in the way you want it to change. The reality is simple, even if it feels harsh. Your life is currently shaped by the level of effort you repeatedly accept. Not your dreams, not your intentions, not your motivation in rare moments of inspiration, but the standard you actually live by when things are boring, when things are difficult, when things are repetitive, and when no one is there to push you except yourself. And if you are honest, you will see the pattern. You will see where you chose comfort over intensity. You will see where you chose good enough instead of maximum effort. You will see where you allowed distraction to win, where you allowed laziness to soften your standards, where you allowed time to pass while your effort stayed average. And that pattern is exactly what created your current results. But here is the part most people miss: the same truth that explains why you are stuck is also the key to escaping it. Because if average effort created your current life, then higher effort, real intensity, real focus, real execution can create a completely different one. Not slowly, not magically, but through a consistent change in how you operate every single day. You don't need a new identity. You don't need a perfect moment. You don't need permission. You need a decision about your standards. A decision that you will no longer reward yourself for simply showing up, but only for how you show up. A decision that your time, your energy, and your attention will no longer be wasted on half-effort living. A decision that every day you will demand more from yourself than you did yesterday. Because at the end of everything, life does not respond to what you say, it responds to what you repeatedly do. And if what you repeatedly do is weak, distracted, and average, your life will reflect that. But if what you repeatedly do is focused, intentional, and intense, your life will have no choice but to change, and that is where everything begins.